Hello, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and as the sun sets, both literally and figuratively, on New York, the city that has been dismantled, we need to talk about the thing that dismantled it. That's right. We need to talk about not Governor Cuomo or Mayor de Blasio. They had help. There was more to the destruction of New York than just those two baffling idiots. There was a disease. There was COVID, right? And COVID is a disease that is different for everyone. How was it for me? The chill 4 days. I mean, I had a fever. I think I hit like 103 at one point. But all in all, as long as I kept eating, it was no big deal, right? And that's overwhelmingly what people experience. That's generally how things go. Some people have a harder time. There's a fair number of people who have 2 week experiences, and of course there's a percentage of people, whether that's 1% or 2% or whatever you want to argue the number is, that die from COVID, right? Which is tragic and sad. There's also people who experience symptoms for month after month after month, surviving, but severely hampered, right? Exhaustion, memory issues, lung issues. There's all these symptoms, and not all of them are really corroborated by the science yet, right? Some of them are rare. Some of them haven't shown up that often. Some of them there's just not enough data on yet, but some of them are pretty uh, clear cut, and really tied to COVID, right? We have some data. We know there's a relation between COVID and these symptoms, these conditions. And let's be honest, some of those conditions, extreme exhaustion, cognitive issues, memory loss, right? Difficulties breathing. Many of these mimic the symptoms and the conditions of known disabilities recognized by the federal government and state governments as well. And people are now applying for Social Security disability for COVID. And it's very unclear if those applications are going to be accepted or not by the federal government, right? I mean, generally speaking, they make it somewhat difficult to qualify for disability benefits. That's not really our concern, at least not my concern, because I can't really help people with that. I don't help people apply for disability benefits. But as this trend of people trying to treat COVID as a disability grows, well, what do? I get people reasonable accommodations for their disability. What if you do have long standing, really sticking symptoms of COVID, but you can still work? You can still work, but you might need a reasonable accommodation because now you have this long term symptom that makes your life harder, that makes your work life harder, right? Does that mean that you should qualify for a reasonable accommodation? Right now, the answer is probably no, which is shocking. Because if you have, say, memory loss, right, and that's related to a cognitive disorder, well, that's probably going to count as a disability under federal law. But right now, if it's coming from COVID, I'm not so sure it does. Why? You're suffering in the identical same way as the other person. Your symptoms simply come from a different source, right? And certainly it makes them no less real. Let's look at it another way, right? We have serious asthma can be a disability, right, under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, there's going to be a number of accommodations associated with asthma that doctors know can help people to do their jobs, even with that medical condition. Well, if your shortness of breath, your lung issue, comes from asthma, you're covered right now. That's a disability. You've got rights. You've got a right to a reasonable accommodation dialogue. You've got a right to an actual reasonable accommodation. You go to your doctor, you get the reasonable accommodation letter, you say, hey, this is what my doctor says I need, give it to me. Oh, you don't want to give it to me? I'm going to call Vince or some other employment attorney, right? That's fairly simple. That's a well set out system that exists. What if your breathing troubles come not from asthma, but from COVID? Not so well settled anymore. Not so clear necessarily. There's arguments to be made. Certainly, I believe. I believe that's a disability that you should be due a reasonable accommodation for. Will courts agree? Only one way to find out, in my opinion. And I think we need to start thinking about this because these people who have long-term symptoms, there's more of them every day, right? The vaccine is not a solution. This is not the end of COVID. COVID changes. It mutates over and over and over. And the doctors, the scientists have been pretty clear. We should expect COVID to behave like the flu. One vaccine does not vanquish the flu. You get a shot every year. The shot helps. The shot is not perfect. The shot helps, right? But you can still get COVID. You can still get COVID. And that's the reality. The reality is more people are going to come down with this disease while we're trying to vaccinate everyone, and then even after that, once the disease mutates. And some of those people are going to have long-term symptoms. And we need to figure out what we're going to do for those people. Because some of them will be able to work. Some of them won't. The ones who won't, maybe they'll go on disability benefits. I don't know. That's not my field. I would not be the best person to help those people. If you can't work, I probably can't help you. But I can help you if you work, right? And at that point, if you can work and you have long-lasting symptoms, as a nation, we need to figure out what protections are we going to give you? Are we going to take the long-term symptoms of COVID and shove them under the Americans with Disabilities Act and get those people all of those protections? We should. Because those protections are really well built out and have worked really well, and people know how to get those protections, right? We don't need a new system. You don't need to start from the ground up. All you need to do is say, that's a disability. And once you clarify that that is a disability under the auspices of the Americans with Disabilities Act, those people have rights. Clear, bright line rule rights that they can count on. That people can help defend for them. That attorneys, like our firm and other employment firms, can wade into battle and say, you didn't give this person the accommodations they need. Either you give them the accommodations, or you're going to have a bad day. We're going to mess you up, right? Why would we not want these people to have those protections? Do we not think their conditions are real? Are we going to play this like we played Lyme disease, where everybody pretended Lyme disease wasn't real for about a decade? Well, people suffered and some of them died. Did we learn nothing? Is that how we want to be? Is that the behavior of a good first world nation that has the resources to help people? I don't think it is. I think it's time we got ahead of this. And I really hope we can do that instead of piecemeal, one case at a time. I think we should do it in a clear-cut, bright-line rule that lets everyone know their rights. Takes the uncertainty and the risk out and lets people know, yeah, many of you are going to get COVID. Even with the vaccines coming out, people are still getting sick. Some of you are going to get it bad. We hope you survive. The death rate is getting very low, and that's wonderful news. Some of you are still going to have long-term symptoms. We need to do something about that. We need to make sure, if you can work with your long-term symptoms, that we support you. We give you protections. We give you access to reasonable accommodations. Just my thought. I hope somebody else is thinking about this, because if I'm the only one, I don't know about that. Seems kind of iffy to me. Good luck, everybody. Stay safe out there.